I traveled to Kigali, Rwanda after a long journey through Doha and Nairobi. But this was never only about distance. It was about returning to a place where stories were already unfolding, where relationships had already taken root, and where God was already at work long before I arrived. From the end of May through June of 2026, I had the privilege of teaching, serving, listening, and walking alongside Africa Transformation Network, Rwanda Children, and community partners. The work centered on trauma-informed care, leadership, mothers, staff, students, and the slow, sacred work of community restoration. But before it became a set of lessons or programs, it became a place of relationships. One conversation, one prayer, one shared table, one song, one greeting at a time.
We are going at home.
Oh yes, have a good day. The rhythm of the days became familiar, but never ordinary. Mornings often began by placing the day in God's hands. Whether gathered with staff or surrounded by students, voices rose in worship. Scripture was opened, and the day was entrusted to the Lord before the work began. Faith wasn't simply something we practiced, it was the rhythm of daily life. There was something powerful about beginning that way. Before teaching, before schedules, before activities, there was worship. There was a reminder that this work was not built on our energy alone. From there, the day would unfold into teaching sessions, conversations, games, meals, and moments that were never on the schedule but often became the most meaningful part of the day. From morning to night, students sang in chapel, played soccer in the evening, gathered at Conversation Corner, asked honest questions, and welcomed us into the everyday rhythm of their lives. At ATN, the work moved through classrooms, fields, cultural spaces, and gathering places. There were team meetings, teaching moments, laughter, and students learning not only skills, but confidence, purpose, and community. The rhythm was full, sometimes tiring, often joyful, always meaningful. And again, I was reminded that presence is not a small thing. Sometimes the ministry was the lesson. Sometimes it was the listening. Sometimes it was simply staying long enough for real conversation to begin. Teaching in Rwanda was never just about delivering information. It was about building safety in the room. It was about helping people see the dignity in their own stories and the power they already carried. At the Child Malnutrition Program, the mothers sang and danced. We helped prepare lunch, sat with mothers, held babies, listened to stories, and talked about care in the most practical and human ways. In the sewing program, students laughed, worked, learned, and showed us what they had created with their own hands. Their designs were beautiful, but so was their courage. With nurses and midwives, teachers, students, and leaders, the conversations kept circling back to the same truth. Healing does not happen through information alone. Healing happens in relationships where people are seen, heard, respected, and safe. And restoration is often quiet before it is visible. It looks like a mother trying something new, a student asking a hard question, a teacher choosing patience, a leader listening differently, a community believing that change is possible. Some moments showed the impact of programs taking root across the community. At the Health Post, I saw what thoughtful, organized, community-centered care can look like. The first community health fair welcomed more than 500 people before noon. and it was so well organized that you would have never known it was the first. Families moved through rooms with dignity, children were seen, patients were examined, labs were processed, care moved quickly from need to response. It was practical, it was efficient, it was deeply human. And then there were the students. High school students sang, Girl Guides welcomed me into their movement. The band practiced. Students demonstrated skills at the pump track. Visitors joined from the Embassy of Israel in Rwanda, Legends of the NBA, and Mission Rwanda 2026. Everywhere I looked, I saw evidence of investment, not just in buildings or programs, but in people. I also spent many hours with the mothers in the child malnutrition program. We talked about trauma-informed care, parenting, safety, discipline, and the difference one choice can make in a family. One mother shared that after learning from the sessions and reading the handout, her husband promised he would never beat their children again. Another mother reconnected with her 20-year-old son after years of silence. She apologized for things that had happened in his childhood. He forgave her, and together they began rebuilding a relationship. That is impact. Not always loud, not always measurable in the moment, but holy and real and worth every mile. Rwanda is beautiful in ways that are difficult to explain. It is the green of the hills, the red of the dirt roads, the sound of students singing, the rhythm of drums, the warmth of welcome, and the laughter that rises even when everyone is tired. At Rwanda Children's 10-year anniversary celebration, students from primary through secondary shared drums, dance, and song. It was not simply a performance. It felt like a celebration of what's been built, what's been endured, and what continues to grow. We walked to the place where rivers meet to form the Akagera River. The walk was beautiful, the red dust was very real, and along the way we saw daily life unfolding. Fishing boats, village paths, families, and the quiet dignity of ordinary work. Josiane taught us traditional dance steps along the river. She was my interpreter, but she was also a teacher, counselor, chaplain, and constant gift. At ATN, the cultural experience invited the students into Rwanda's history, land, food, work, and joy. They milked cows, planted coffee trees, picked coffee beans, ground sorghum, and stepped into traditions that carry memory and meaning. And then there was Esther. Esther sings and dances in everything that she does. Praise seems to come out of her as naturally as breathing. She reminded us that joy is not something added to life after the work is finished. Sometimes joy is the work. Peace House was one of the places where time felt layered. We gathered in song before the session began. Then we entered into one of the central practices of Peace House, Discovery Bible Study. Reading scripture, listening together, and allowing truth to move through community. Afterwards, we went outside to hear testimonies from graduates. One of those graduates was Peter. Peter was one of the first 5 boys in Peace House. I first met him in 2011 on my first trip to Rwanda, and now, years later, I was standing beside him as a grown man, with a good job, a family of his own, and a story still unfolding. We looked through old pictures together. We remembered. We laughed. We stood in the strange and beautiful space between what was and what had become. Today, Peace House has grown far beyond those first boys, with 40 active peace houses across the provinces of Rwanda. And I stood there thinking, this is what faithfulness can look like over time. A seed, a house, a boy, a story, a life changed, and then another.
I thank God because of Peace House. Peace House has given me a father. It has given me a mother. It has given me a friend. It's given me family. I'm very happy.
Akagera was a gift of wonder and rest. After days full of teaching, conversation, and emotion, the wide open beauty of the park felt like an exhale. We saw 4 of the big 5: elephants, water buffalo, rhinos, and lions. But the gift was not only in what we saw, it was in the stillness, the early morning light, the red dust, the quiet awe of watching creation move around us. There are moments when beauty becomes its own kind of restoration. Akagera reminded me that rest is not separate from the work. Rest helps us stay present to it. Rwanda taught me again that transformation is often found in the ordinary. It was in the way people greeted one another, in the way students sang, in the way mothers listened and tried again, in the way staff carried responsibility with grace, in the way a campus came alive at night with lights, laughter, games, and stories. It was in Nicole, whose story reminds me that healing can be slow and miraculous at the same time. It was in Fanny and her daughter and the dignity and beauty of the sewing program. It was in Josiane, who interpreted my words but also helped me to understand the heart of what was happening around me. It was in Deborah, whose spirit carried a quiet strength and beauty. It was in Ivan's baptism, a moment of faith, courage, and joy. And it was in the mango tree planted in honor of my dad after he passed in 2023. It reminded me that love does not end when someone is gone. Sometimes it becomes a tree in another country. Sometimes it becomes shade for someone else. Sometimes it becomes a quiet place to stand and remember that what we plant in love can keep growing long after us. As I look back on this season in Rwanda, I do not only remember what we did. I remember the faces. I remember the laughter, the worship, the red dirt, the long conversations, the hard questions, the dancing, the prayers, the quiet goodbyes. And I remember being reminded again and again that God often does his deepest work in places that cannot be rushed. This trip was about teaching, but it was also about being taught. It was about serving, but it was also about receiving. It was about going to Rwanda, but it was also about seeing what God is growing there, through people, through programs, through relationships, through years of faithfulness. To everyone who prayed, gave, encouraged, supported, and followed along, thank you. You are part of this story, and the work is still taking root.